Welcome to While We Were Distracted, the podcast where we explore topics that often get overshadowed in the rush of daily life. Please take a moment to like and subscribe. It really helps.
All right, diving into a political storm that really shook things up, the Michael Flynn saga. We're zeroing in on the unmasking controversy and what led to his resignation as National Security Advisor.
Yeah, definitely a story with a lot of twists and turns.
Totally. Now, you might remember unmasking being tossed around in the news, but as a refresher, it's when the identity of a U.S. citizen, initially hidden in intelligence reports, is revealed upon request by authorized officials.
Right, a legal process, but it's how it all went down with Flynn that really ignited things.
Exactly. So today, we're going to untangle this Flynn situation. Did anything improper happen? How did it explode into this massive political firestorm? In fact, a pretty diverse set of sources, news articles mapping out the timeline, some pretty heated political commentary, even a peek into Flynn's world through a documentary trailer and interviews.
A lot to unpack. It really shows how something seemingly routine in intelligence can become, well, a political powder keg.
Absolutely. And with all this info swirling around, how do we even separate fact from spin?
That's the million-dollar question. And it's really what we're going to try to do today, just lay it all out there.
Exactly. So let's set the scene. Back to those calls Flynn made to the Russian ambassador right after the 2016 election. U.S. intelligence was listening in, as you might expect.
Standard procedure, right?
Right. Now, they usually keep the identity of U.S. citizens involved in these intercepts hidden, redacted. But in this case, some officials in the Obama administration requested Flynn's identity be unmasked.
And that's where things get really interesting, right? Because we have Senators Johnson and Grassley, both Republicans, who actually investigated this whole thing, and they concluded that the unmasking itself was completely legal.
But it still became a major political weapon, didn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Trump and his supporters saw it as, like, evidence of wrongdoing by the Obama administration. They even started calling it Obamagate.
So you have this legal process on one hand, and then accusations of a massive political conspiracy on the other. Really shows you how divided things were.
Totally. And it's important to note, despite all the accusations flying around, no specific charges were ever brought against anyone in the Obama administration related to Flynn's unmasking.
Which led a lot of people to believe Obamagate was more of a political, I don't know, tactic than a real scandal.
Yeah, it's hard to say for sure what the motivations were, but it definitely added fuel to the fire.
For sure. It's fascinating how this whole routine intelligence procedure got twisted and, I guess, weaponized in political battles.
It speaks to the broader issue of how intelligence can be used or misused, depending on who's in power and what their agenda is.
Absolutely. So, to really understand the different perspectives here, let's look at what Obama himself had to say about all of this. There's this leaked conversation he had with some members of the Obama Alumni Association, offers some valuable insights.
Yeah, definitely worth looking at. In that conversation, Obama expressed some serious concerns about the dropping of charges against Flynn, which happened later under the Trump administration.
Right. And he saw that as, like, a real threat to the rule of law.
Exactly. Like a dangerous precedent.
On the other hand, you have Trump very publicly and forcefully pushing a totally different narrative, right?
Yeah, big time.
Accusing the Obama administration of acting in an unprecedented way, even using some pretty harsh language, calling those involved scum, I think.
Yeah, really strong words. It just shows how differently these events were perceived, even when you're dealing with seemingly objective facts.
Totally. Interpretation and the stories we tell ourselves, I mean, they can be wildly different.
It's almost like we're living in parallel universes sometimes. And here's a detail that often gets missed in all this back and forth.
Okay, lay it on me.
Obama actually cautioned Trump against hiring Flynn in their, post-election meeting, had reservations stemming from Flynn's time heading the Defense Intelligence Agency, the DIA.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Apparently, there were concerns about Flynn's temperament and management style. Some red flags there.
Interesting. So, despite those warnings, Trump went ahead and brought Flynn on. But then, when this whole thing with Russia blows up, Trump tried to shift the blame back to the Obama administration for granting Flynn security clearance.
It's a little bit of a tangled web, isn't it?
It is.
And it raises questions about, well, who was ultimately responsible for vetting Flynn and making sure he was fit for such a sensitive role?
Yeah, exactly. Whose responsibility was it, really? Okay, so to get a more personal perspective on all of this, let's turn to Flynn's own words. We've got some excerpts from his documentary and some interviews where he talks about his experience.
Of course, this is just one side of the story, but it does give us a glimpse into the human impact of all of this. Because behind the political maneuvering, there are real people, real lives affected by this whole thing.
Right, people get caught in the crossfire.
Exactly. And Flynn, in his own words, he talks about feeling persecuted, and his decision to fight back against what he saw as an overreaching government.
Like a David versus Goliath kind of
Mhm.
situation.
Yeah, he definitely paints himself as someone who was targeted and silenced. And he also talks a lot about the toll it took on his family, emphasizes their strength and unity as they went through this whole ordeal.
It's a reminder that these political scandals, they don't just impact the people directly involved, they ripple outward.
Absolutely. Families, communities, even the country as a whole, it's like a stone thrown into a pond. The ripples go out in all directions.
Powerful image. So Flynn talks about his family. He also talks about leadership and sacrifice, right?
Yeah, he does. He talks about the importance of standing up for what you believe in, even when you're up against powerful forces. And that message, it resonates with a lot of people, regardless of their political views. That whole idea of fighting against a system you perceive as corrupt or unjust.
It's a story that's been told throughout history, right? The individual versus the establishment.
Exactly. But it's important to remember we're hearing this through Flynn's lens. We need to consider his perspective within the larger context of everything else we've discussed.
Right, all the different sides of the story.
Exactly. We're not here to determine who's the good guy or the bad guy.
It's much more nuanced than that.
Right. It's about trying to understand the complexity of the situation, all the moving parts, and how they fit together.
To form a more informed view of, I guess, how we got here.
Exactly. It really strikes me, as we dig deeper into this, that the Flynn case is just one example of a much bigger trend, This erosion of trust we see, the polarization, people just clinging to narratives that fit their views. Evidence be damned.
Yeah, it's like we can't even have a productive conversation anymore, can we? About anything, really. Everyone's in their own echo chamber, just reinforcing their beliefs, attacking anyone who disagrees.
Social media has a lot to do with it, wouldn't you say? Filter bubbles, echo chambers, it's all amplified now.
It's tough, make it so hard to figure out what's real, what's not, and forget about having a respectful debate. So how do we, I don't know, break out of these echo chambers? How do we even start to rebuild trust in institutions, in each other?
That's the age-old question, isn't it? Been debated forever. But one thing that's crucial, I think, is recognizing these cognitive biases we all have.
Cognitive biases. Could you break that down a bit?
Sure. Basically, there are these mental shortcuts our brains use, ways to process info quickly. They can be helpful, make things simpler, but they can also lead us down the wrong path, make us cling to beliefs that aren't really backed up by evidence.
So someone who already believes there's this deep state conspiracy against Trump, they're more likely to see the Flynn case as proof of that, even if there's no real evidence.
Exactly. And the opposite is true, too. Someone who distrusts Trump might see Flynn as inherently suspicious, even if there's a totally innocent explanation.
Like we're all seeing things through these tinted lenses.
That's a great way to put it. So the question is, how do we overcome these biases? If we even can.
It feels almost impossible sometimes, especially when you're bombarded with information that just confirms what you already think.
It's tough, no doubt. But it's essential. Being aware of our own biases, actively seeking out different views, being willing to challenge our own assumptions, that's a good start.
Makes sense. So it's not just what we're reading or watching, but how we're engaging with it.
You got it. Cultivating those media literacy skills, critically evaluating sources, spotting bias, separating fact from opinion. We can't just be passive sponges, soaking it all up.
And being open to the idea that we might be wrong, which is, well, not always easy to admit.
No, it's not. But none of us has all the answers, right?
Yeah.
We all benefit from actually talking to people who see things differently, especially when the stakes are high like they are now.
Because in the end, this Flynn case, it's not just about him. It's about the health of our whole system.
Absolutely. If we're so divided, constantly fighting, we can't tackle the real issues, the challenges that affect us all.
It's scary to think about, really, going from disagreement to just complete dysfunction. So going back to those concerns about Flynn from his time at the DIA, what was it that worried people?
Well, at the DIA, Flynn, he developed a reputation. Let's just say he was a bit of a maverick. Chaotic management style, abrasive personality. Some even said he pushed intelligence that fit his views instead of sticking to the facts.
Wow. And these concerns were serious enough that Obama warned Trump about them. Directly. Hard to believe Trump ignored that.
Yeah, it's a head-scratcher. Maybe Trump saw something in Flynn, others didn't. Who knows? A shared vision, maybe? Or maybe he just liked that Flynn was a shake things up kind of guy.
Whatever the reason, bringing Flynn on board, despite all those red flags, it backfired, didn't it? And just fueled the distrust and division even more.
In a way, the whole Flynn saga becomes this microcosm of the bigger picture. The accusations, the conflicting stories, the blurring of truth and fiction, it's all there.
Leaves us with some pretty big questions, huh? How do you restore faith in institutions that have been, well, damaged by scandals, partisanship, all of it?
Yeah, and how do you navigate this information landscape where truth seems so slippery, so subjective?
Tough questions.
Yeah.
And no easy answers.
Nope. But maybe the first step is just acknowledging that it's complex, resisting the urge to oversimplify things, or just go with the partisan line.
Embracing nuance,
Yeah.
being open to different perspectives, having those hard conversations with people who don't agree with you.
Exactly. Remembering that we're all in this together, this whole democracy thing, it only works if we're willing to talk to each other respectfully, even when we disagree.
And holding our leaders accountable. But also remembering that we have a responsibility, too, to be informed, to be engaged.
Could have said it better myself.
You know, going through this whole Michael Flynn situation, what really strikes me is the impact it had on our institutions, especially the intelligence community.
Yeah, for sure. These scandals, they really erode public trust, no matter the specifics.
Right.
And for intelligence agencies, that trust is essential. I mean, they need it to do their jobs to gather information and keep us safe.
Exactly. And when that trust is shaken, well, it becomes so much harder for them to be effective. It even makes it harder to recruit people, to find those dedicated to serving their country.
It really creates a chilling effect, you know?
Yeah.
People become afraid to speak up, to raise concerns. They don't want to get caught in the political crossfire.
Which can have huge consequences, right? For national security, I mean, if the intelligence community is afraid to share information or challenge assumptions because of political pressure, we're all less safe.
Absolutely. Okay, let's talk about Michael Flynn's resignation. One of the key factors there was that FBI interview.
Right, just days after Trump's inauguration. Focusing on those calls Flynn had with the Russian ambassador during the transition, the FBI was already investigating Russia's interference in the election, and those conversations, well, they raised some red flags.
During the interview, Flynn made statements that, let's just say they were contradicted by other evidence, like intercepted communications, for example.
And that discrepancy led the FBI to conclude that Flynn had misled them about the nature of his conversations with the ambassador. And that's when things really took off. The FBI went to the Justice Department, and they determined that Flynn had also lied to the Vice President, Mike Pence, about those conversations.
Which created a major problem for the Trump administration. I mean, they were already under scrutiny about ties to Russia, and now a key member of their team had been caught lying.
The pressure was on.
Big time.
And so Trump asked for Flynn's resignation, just 22 days after becoming National Security Advisor. Crazy short stint, really sent shockwaves through Washington.
Yeah, no kidding. The speed of it all was pretty unprecedented. It showed just how serious the situation was.
But of course, that wasn't the end of the story. Flynn's resignation was just the beginning. This whole saga has unfolded for years, and as we've seen, it raises so many questions about truth, accountability, the balance between national security and individual rights.
It leaves us, I think, wondering what it even means to live in a democracy today, where trust has eroded, where the political divisions just seem to deepen.
You know, wrapping up this deep dive, I'm struck by how this whole Flynn case is a cautionary tale, in a way. It reminds us how fragile our institutions are, how dangerous unchecked power can be, and how important it is to hold our leaders accountable.
It also shows how important we all are as citizens. We can't just sit back and watch. We have to stay informed, think critically, demand transparency.
Because the health of our democracy depends on us, on an informed and engaged citizenry. We can't just rely on others to protect our freedoms, uphold our values. It's a responsibility we all share.
Well said. So, as you continue to explore these issues, think about this. In a time when information is so easily manipulated, weaponized even, how do we develop those critical thinking skills, the skills we need to figure out what's true, what's not, and make informed decisions about the world around us?
It's a challenge we all face. But if we want to navigate these complex times, build a better future, it's a challenge we have to embrace.
Feel free to comment your thoughts or where you would like the conversation to go in a future cast. Please take a moment to like and subscribe. It really helps.